Welcome to another episode of Courageous Conversations Live. I am your host, Pierre Quinn, and here on Courageous Conversations, we're leveraging the stories of leaders, of entrepreneurs, of creators to help you live and lead with greater courage. So joining me on this episode of Courageous Conversations is Dr. Deborah Higdon. Dr. Deborah, thanks for being my guest today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on Courageous Conversations Live. I have seen your other conversations with many people. I've learned from them, and I am humbled and honored to be on today. Thank you.
Excited to host today, and I'm excited for everyone who can join us. Whatever platform you're watching us on, I just want to encourage you to check in with us in the comment section. We love to do shout outs. And if you have questions during our conversation with Dr. Higdon, feel free to drop those in as well. So, Dr. Higdon, I know this is going to be a great conversation. I had a chance to read the article that you wrote, and we'll get there in just a bit. But if you could tell the folks who are watching live and those who will watch the replay of this conversation a little bit about you and what you do.
Okay. I am a registered nurse turned educator. My bachelor's degree is in nursing, and for many years, I was a registered nurse. In fact, I was CCRN, a certified critical nurse. And then I had my son. When I had my son, it was right at the time that hospitals were changing from 8-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts, and all nurses had to make the change. As a new mom, that was not going to work for me. And even though we talk about 12-hour shifts, the time to get there, to report in, to change into the scrubs, etc., it was more like a 14-hour day. So I was talking to my sister who was working for Baltimore County Schools at the time, and she said, "Why don't you become a school nurse?" I was like, "Oh no, don't you know I am a certified critical care nurse?" I was all into my pride and like, "Oh, I can't do that. That's beneath me." Couple months later, after trying to work the shifts, the 12-hour shifts, I called her and said, "Can you give me information about becoming a school nurse?" So I took a $15,000 cut in pay. And back then, that was a lot of money. In fact, today it's still a lot of money. But a $15,000 cut in pay, became a school nurse. When I became a school nurse, the school nurse had to also take education classes. So I took all of these education classes in college, and I was certified as a teacher. So then I got hired for Montgomery County Public Schools as a high school teacher teaching medical careers and medical science. And as they say, the rest is history. I became an administrator. I was an assistant principal for 6 years. And then the last 11 years, I was actually a principal. Then this past July, I decided to retire. So I retired. I graduated from Bowie with my doctoral degree. I started writing a book, but I got a call recently to come back and help the school system out. So starting Monday, I'm going back in an acting principal role at one of the local middle schools.
So you just yet, it's some work for you to do still. I got to ask you, when you look at your career beginning in nursing and then the transition to education, did you ever wrestle with the feeling of maybe you left your calling as a nurse and how you thought your career was going to turn out? How did you wrestle with maybe those questions when you were making the transition from school nurse to ultimately educator?
That's a really good question. I did wrestle with it because for many, many years, that was my passion. As a child, 8 years old, I said, I'm going to be a nurse. So for all of those years, that was my only focus. And I actually took a Briggs-Myers test when I was in high school. I took two, and they both came out and had teacher as number one and nurse number two. And I thought that was like, they're wrong. There's no way I'm supposed to be a teacher. However, I come from a family of teachers. My mom is a teacher. My sister's a teacher. My middle sister went to school to become a teacher, but then she became a software engineer. But educators are all in my family. So I wanted to do something different and something that I loved, which was to become a nurse. So what I did was I talked to some other nurses who were doing things like professional development in the hospital. And they said that nursing and teachers in the field of education is very much connected because we teach patients all the time. We just don't see ourselves as teachers. We would see ourselves as nurses. And I found that once I made the transition into the school system, I was doing a lot of teaching kids and staff. And it was very similar to what I was doing in the hospital, more on the education side of teaching people how to take care of themselves. But it's very much so a people industry, just like education is, and a lot of communication is needed.
So, what it felt like to win or to be recognized as an outstanding educator, to be recognized as principal of the year, and how you like, is that something that you saw coming? Is that something that you set on your goal or your vision board to work toward? Or was
Never.
it happened as a result of just the work you were doing?
I'll tell you, there were several honors I received, but the Claes and the Principal of the Year are the two that mean the most to me because they came from students. Mm. And the Junior Council is from all of the middle school students who had representatives in the Student Government Association. And when they called me and told me that I was Principal of the Year for Montgomery County Student Junior Councils, I said, do you have the right person? Are you sure it's me? And she said, yes. And she said, and also it was unanimous. I almost fell out of my chair. I said, well, tell me a little bit more. Who won it last year? I didn't even know this award existed. She said, we haven't had someone for the last 2 years because they couldn't find a principal that they felt was worthy of the award. Wow. Blew me away. It blew me away. So when students who, again, are representing 36,000 other students choose you as that principal who makes a difference in students' lives, that to me said everything about my career. Because when I made the transition to become an educator, that was one of my main goals, to definitely make a difference. As a high school teacher for 11 years, my focus was not just teaching, but connecting, relating, making sure that when I was standing in front of my students, that my students had an educator who was knowledgeable, but who was also caring. So as a principal, I carried that in. I didn't want to have the image of what so many people think a principal is, that it's the person that you go see when you're in trouble. And if you get that, you're going to the principal's office, it's negative and bad. I wanted to change that, to be out there so that the kids would see me in the cafeteria, see me in the hall, see me in their classrooms. When I first became a principal at my middle school, my first 2 years, I had to say to my staff, I'm not stalking you. Because I would go in classrooms like, well, what's she doing back here again? Here she is again. I had to see what was going on. I had to know what was going on. In fact, somebody asked me once my management style, and I told them my management style is MBWA, management by walking around. I have to walk around and see what's going on. So then whenever I need to evaluate you, talk to you, support you, I can do it with true data because I know. And that way also kids saw me in their classrooms all the time. So then when they had to see me for something that may not be quite right, a rule that was broken, they didn't have that fear because they know me. And sometimes kids would just say, send me to Miss Higdon. I need to see her. They do something and then say, send me down to see her. If I talk to her, I know I can make this right. And so I met my goal with building those relationships. Because kids and even adults, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
It's got to be true because it comes from an award-winning educator. And speaking of education, there is an article that you wrote that you sent. We discussed it before, and I think it's applicable to all of us. And I want to get into a conversation about that article. We got Lashana Barker checking in with us on LinkedIn, saying hello to us this morning. She said,
hi, Lashana.
Yeah. See you care. And then we have another educator checking in with us, Alicia Weideman, checking in from Ohio, I believe. So another educator in the house checking in.
Hi, Alicia.
So let's talk about this article, and
Yes.
let's mix in some of the challenges that we see, maybe not even just in education, but leaders at all levels. They really struggle with. Talk to us about why you wrote this article, and the title of the article, which is so perfect for us today. The title of the article is "Courageous Conversations for Cowards."
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful title there. Can you yeah.
Well, the article was written by me and my assistant principal, Carrie Reed. We were both recovering cowards. In any position, in most positions of leadership, there are times that you have to have conversations that make you very uncomfortable. Like anybody else, even though I was the principal, I still wanted people to like me. I didn't want them to see me as this mean person. But there were times that I knew that I had to have conversations with parents or with kids or with staff that could be very emotional, that could make people upset, and that could possibly break a relationship. And it bothered me. There were times that I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I'm not one to usually have headaches, but I would have a headache, or my stomach would just be twisting and turning. And I finally, after about 2 years of this, I was a principal for 11 years, about 2 years of this, said, you've got to do better. You know that this is something that you signed up for. This is something that a leader has to do. So you have to do better. And I started thinking about what is it that I need to do to prepare to come into these meetings. And that's when I came up with everybody needs SOS. SOS, that help. What help can I get? What help can I give other people to prepare for these courageous conversations? Because we know that the main reason most people won't do them is fear. We will tolerate bad behavior, we'll excuse bad behavior, we'll see something and let it go because we're afraid to say something, or we're afraid of somebody's reaction if we do say something. So I started with, well, let's talk about the facts. In education, we do a whole lot of things that are based on data. We make data-driven decisions. So S stands for, in the SOS, surround yourself with the facts. Get the data, get some artifacts, get notes, get emails. If most schools have videos, get videos. Take a look at it and review them. And this is key, review them for accuracy. If it's information that's coming from somebody else, make sure it is accurate before you schedule a meeting to talk to somebody. And also make sure that everything that you have is clear, that it's not falling in this, it's kind of ambiguous. So you want to surround yourself with the facts and review them. The next thing that you want to do is you want to get a second person, a trusted colleague, someone who is usually on the same level or close to that level, to come in and review what you have and see what they say. And then if they say, yeah, you know what, I agree with you, it looks like there's a problem here and you need to move forward with this. And so the next thing to do is to plan and prepare. I cannot tell you how important that is. Practice exactly what you're going to say. Have a plan. Even if you know that you're going to meet with somebody at 3 o'clock and here it is 8 o'clock in the morning, do these steps. Get the data, plan something, be prepared, review everything so that you know when you go in and schedule this meeting, you're going to be clear. Also, schedule the meeting at a time that works best for you, that you're rested. Some people are better in the afternoon, some people are better at first thing in the morning, but make sure that it works for you and that there's not going to be any extra pressure on you to have a meeting. The O in this is be prepared to offer solutions. Have you ever gone into a meeting and everybody was complaining about something and this is a problem and this is going on and this is something else that we need to do, but nobody had solutions? You got to have some solutions. Nobody is getting an award for saying we need to build an ark. Build the ark. So come in offering some solutions. And that means that you have to think about what would make this right. Now, they may have some solutions too, but what do you think would make it right? Be very clear about what your non-negotiables are. I remember having a staff member who would come in late every day, come in late and come in with a Starbucks. And so when we were talking about solutions, he said, well, move my schedule back. Well, I couldn't move his schedule back. It was going to impact 1,400 people, besides the 1,200 plus kids, the 150 plus employees. No, that couldn't happen. So that was my non-negotiable. How about this? Get up 15, 20 minutes early to come to work. And when I said that, he said, I hadn't even thought about it. So be very clear about what your non-negotiables are going to be. And give everybody, make sure you schedule this so that everybody will have a chance to talk and speak their piece and offer some kind of a solution. When you're in the meeting, you want to make sure that there's a way to summarize, review everything that has been said, make sure if there's any dates or things that follow up, you know who, what, when, and where. But the last S is stay calm. You got to stay calm. You know that this is a very emotional situation for you, probably for them. There were times that I would start a meeting that I knew would be very uncomfortable and say, I know this is uncomfortable for you because it's uncomfortable for me too. So let's just put that on the table. And I would speak that, and sometimes I could just see the person just go, because they came in not knowing how I was feeling either. You know what? I feel upset and nervous about having this conversation, but you and I know it's something that we have to talk about. So you want to stay calm. If you are the one who is calling the meeting and you're the one in the leadership position, you have positional power. Don't ever forget that. You have positional power. And as you're in there, use your power as a flashlight, not as a hammer. You don't have to, I'm the principal, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, and this is the way it is. No, everybody knows that. So this is the time to have grace and mercy. This is the time to treat someone the way you want to be treated, because what I have found is we don't know everything that's going on in somebody's life. Sometimes by having these courageous conversations, this is the time that they share something that makes you go, oh, I didn't know that. Or why didn't you share that before? Now that explains why this is going on and why this is happening. So you really want to be open to hear what is going on. And I believe you're going to talk to somebody about the EQ, about emotional quotient. This is really important that you know what your emotional quotient is, that you can be open to other people, that you can hear what they are saying and be able to receive it in such a way that you can then work with them to come up with some kind of a solution. So you want to stay calm. And if it does get out of control where somebody says something, there's that whole poster out there that says Q-tip, quit taking it personally. When I would deal with parents coming in with any issue about their child, I had to remember that number one, they love their child. Just like I have a son and I have a granddaughter, I love them. I have a husband, I have a mom, my siblings, my brothers, my sisters. I love them, my friend. I love them. And you know, Mama Bear will come out when somebody does something, when they think somebody has done something to their child. And so if they come in and they're a little swole, a little upset, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. When you send that employee the email, I need to see you, and they come in and they're looking like, yeah, what? You can't take that personally. Q-tip. Because you have to also know that a lot of people have had a negative history going into the boss's office, coming into the school or the principal's office. They bring all of that with them. They bring that past history and that past emotion with them. And maybe you've never met them and it's nothing personal with you. It doesn't stop the fact that they've had that history, and that history walks in the door when they walk in. And so your job now is to stay calm and to give them a different experience so that when they walk out, they know that they've been heard. Even if you have a disagreement, you can disagree, but you can't be disagreeable. I think Justin Pierre said that the other day on his Courageous Conversation. I was like, oh, I love that. I use that all the time. I use that in meetings. We can disagree, but you know what we're not going to be? We're not going to be disagreeable. And with kids, we have to teach them that. And with adults, sometimes we have to remind them of that. And then there are times that we have to let them get it out and then come right back to the S, the first S, talking about the facts. This may be going on, and I empathize with you. And when we talk about solutions, let's talk about what we can do. But right now, the impact that it's having on your job is what we have to talk about. And you have to be honest. You know, if we don't have these courageous conversations with people, we can't expect them to improve. And I found that once I started having these conversations, courageous conversations, stating the facts, presenting the facts, and doing it in a way that's not disagreeable, offering solutions and staying calm, it gave me such a peace. The benefit for so many people is, yes, we give them the feedback. Yes, we may improve their employee production. We may help somebody come up with a solution that not only helps them at work, but helps them at home. But I found that I walked away a better person. I felt better. I had that peace. I knew that I did right. And one of the things that happened for years, and years, the same person that came in swole now started talking to me.
Wow.
That same parent that came in mad was my greatest cheerleader. There were times that I had to suspend students. And every time I suspended a student, I had an intake conference. They needed to come back and meet with me and their parents. And we talk about, what are we going to do moving forward? We're not going to talk about the incident, moving forward. And I would walk down this long hall to get the kid, and they would see me and run up and say, oh, thank you, Miss Higdon. Or, you know, I missed you. Now they're coming off a suspension. You think they'd be mad. You would think they would be upset. Or parents coming back hugging me. Because it was done with truth and with grace and mercy.
Wow.
Because we never know when we're going to be in a position just the opposite. And we're going to need somebody to show us some grace and some mercy. I would say to everybody, live long enough, and you'll need that.
Dr. Higdon, we've had a great conversation today. We've had Harold Hall checking in with us.
Hi, Harold.
Topic. Mary Winstead said, you know, I'm also a recovering coward. So I'm sure our discussion and then the link to the article that I put in the comments section, I'm sure Mary is going to take advantage of reading that article and enjoy
Thank you, Mary.
our conversation. And Lashana says she thanks you so much for your service to our people. I want to ask you, I know we're closing, we're running out of time. I know you mentioned a couple of stories of experiences with teachers or students, but can you give us a more specific example? And you don't have to give us names, of course, or even the location in which you were an educator, but you had one of those courageous conversations, and maybe it was with a faculty member. And on the other side of it, they said, thank you so much. And it really helped to turn them around.
Let me tell you about a conversation that I had with the head of the school system. Because so often we think about having these conversations and we're the one in the leadership position. Mm-hmm. But there are times that you have to have a courageous conversation with somebody who is over you, your boss, your supervisor. We were all at a meeting of leaders in the county, and the superintendent made a statement about things being good, but we needed to do better. And then he used an example of a lake, that if you have fish in the lake and they're swimming around and they're okay, no problem. But if you put too many fish in the lake, it can be a problem. And so sometimes you can have too much of a good thing. And as he was talking, he was saying that we need to add more fish in the lake. And I said, I raised my hand. I said, but right now, if you look at what we have, and we started talking about some of the programs, I said, I think we already at that point where we're oversaturated with the fish in the lake. And so we're beyond this good thing. At what point can we start taking some things off? May I suggest? And everybody in the room stopped and kind of looked at me like, is she giving him a suggestion? He paused and he looked up, and you know how sometimes you're thinking about things, and he said, I never thought about that. What else can we take off your plate? And I said, thank you. And then other people started saying, have you considered? And have you considered? Sometimes when one person has the courage to speak up, and to speak up in a way that it's not challenging, it's just the, have you considered? Have you thought about? I hear what you're saying. However, we need to look at it this way, and we can look at it this way. One person speaking up can open up the door to give somebody who didn't have the courage to speak up to speak up. Later, that same person invited me to 2 other meetings to discuss what I had presented to the other group and to talk about solutions and what we could do to take things off the staff's plate to make it better. Just by saying that one thing in truth, you know, offering data, offering the facts, sharing the data, sharing the facts, offering a solution, and staying calm. And before I said something, I was like, should I say anything? I'm sitting there, should I? You know, he just used this thing about too much could be too much, and then went on, but we need to add more. And now I'm really saying, but I'm using your example almost against you. But then I thought about the staff feels overworked right now. Look at what's going on right now with this pandemic, with the ice all over the place, with COVID just killing people. People have suffered such loss of homes, loss of businesses, loss of their loved ones. This has been a crazy year. The tornado in North Carolina in the winter. Who hears about a tornado like that in the winter? Politically, what's been going on in this world. Anything that we can do to take something off somebody's plate, to make it easier, is what we need to do now. And again, we need to have the courage to speak up about it. This is why when I have meetings like this, I also give everybody a chance to speak. I remember having a meeting with a parent, and it was a new principal, and she had brought somebody else in. And after we left, we wrote up everything, sent the email out and said, you know, these are the dates, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we agreed upon. She sent back an email to all of us and said, the meeting was good except for one thing. She didn't give my friend a chance to speak. And I always remember that. I called her on the phone and I said, oh, well, I didn't realize that you wanted her to speak. She said, yeah, but we talked and you talked, but you didn't acknowledge her and give her a chance to speak. So before I end any meeting, I go around anybody else and I identify everybody. Is there anything else that you want to say? Is there anything that needs to be changed? Add it, delete it before we end. So you have to have that courage to speak up, especially when you know that what you're about to share is additive. One thing I don't like is when I'm in the meeting and somebody is just saying something that everybody's saying what somebody else has said. Oh, wow. But if it's going to be additive, or you think it is, or it's something to stimulate thought, maybe for later. Because I've been in meetings and in situations where I heard something and right then I didn't receive it, but 11 o'clock at night. It's like, wait a minute, the person said was right on key. Let me follow up with that.
We've had Chris check in with us. He said, "Grace always seems unfair until you need it." Alicia,
Yes, Chris.
a great reflection of relationship building with parents and students, celebrating you for the work that you're doing. And Portia checks in and says, "Good morning, great discussion." So we've run out of time in our discussion today. It was so good. The time went by so fast. I want to encourage, and I put it in the chat. People, I'll come back and put it in the description box as well. People to check out your article, "Courageous Conversations for Cowards." You can just put that in Google, "Courageous Conversations for Cowards," and the article from Dr. Higdon will come up. I got to ask you this before I let you go. There's some people who maybe an educator, maybe a parent, maybe someone who may be wanting to switch in their career like you did, and have some questions about shifting from maybe medicine to being a frontline educator. What type of people would you encourage to even send you an email or click on your profile on LinkedIn to connect with you?
I would say if you're considering it, definitely look into it. Look into how this is something that will benefit you for the rest of your life. I look at what I do with kids as generational blessings. If I can be in a position to help educators teach someone to read or be excellent in math, then this is something that they will take the rest of their lives, and their children's children's children will be better as a result of it. This is a legacy. It's not just a job. And even what you're doing right now, especially if you're in healthcare, I know the impact of that on everybody around the world. And I salute you as a hero. But not just anybody who is interested in coming into education, but I was a career changer and it changed my life. If you're thinking about changing your career, investigate it. Find out the things that's very similar to what you're doing so that it's not such a culture shift. And then if you're really interested in doing it, talk to someone currently in the field or in a similar field and find out what their passion is about it. Also ask them what some of the cons are so that you can have all of the information. I would say to anyone who is struggling with having courageous conversations, if you're an executive, contact me. If you're an individual, you don't have to be a teacher or an educator. If you're in a different job and you know you have to have a courageous conversation, please call me. I'm on Instagram at HigdonTD. My email there, higdontd@outlook.com. Definitely contact me. I'm on Facebook, Deborah Higdon. I will work with you. Now, if it's a big business, there is a consultant fee. I have to say that, but I definitely will work with businesses, big or small, one person to 1,000 people. It is time that we have courageous conversations. We are in the information age. Social media has made us really rude and nasty in a lot of our communications. And then some people take that and continue with that face to face. We need to build our relationships back and our communications back. I can help you with that.
So I want to thank you. People are going to go into your LinkedIn profile. They're going to reach out to connect. They're also going to send you an email to get some insight or also give you an invitation to work with them in their company because they need help. They need someone to walk them through having these courageous conversations. So thank you so much for everyone who's hanging out live or you checking out the replay and dropping your comments in. Thank you for going to the article and reading it. And Dr. Higdon, we'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, Pierre, thank you for having me on. Blessings to you.
Take care. We'll talk soon, okay?
Yes.